This is Nick Thompson, an attorney from Louisville, Kentucky. If you are having questions about bankruptcy, be sure to schedule an appointment so that we can do an analysis of your situation and we can get the right bankruptcy for you. But which bankruptcy do you want? Do you want 11, a 7, or a Chapter 13? Well, if you're looking or considering doing a Chapter 11, that's usually a bankruptcy that's only filed successfully by larger corporations. If you happen to have more than $1.4 million in debt, then you may be forced to file as a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. You may have too much income, you are required to pay something back to the unsecured creditors, but you don't qualify for a Chapter 13 because the debt limits are only 1.4 million or less in a Chapter 13. If you've got more debt than $300,000 of unsecured and more than 1.4 million altogether, then you're going to be required to file as a Chapter 11. The bad thing about a Chapter 11 is all the expense and the reporting and the paperwork that's required in a Chapter 11. About 95% or more of all Chapter 11s fail. So you are planning to eventually fail. And quite often, your assets are going to be sold by the bankruptcy court to pay for the creditors. Now, it may be that you want to do a Chapter 11 so that you can have an orderly distribution of all those assets. But most people are unable to do all the requirements of a Chapter 11 on time, and eventually the corporation is liquidated. Quite often, you can do what you want to do in a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13 because the corporate officers in a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13 are the ones that are really paying the debt for that business if it's a small mom and pop business with a limited amount of assets and a limited amount of income. Quite often the corporation itself is really just owned by one or two people. Therefore, if it's a mom and pop operation owned by the husband and wife, they can file as a Chapter 13 and manage that business liquidation. But by far, most of the people are just regular consumers. If you're a regular consumer, you have very little of income, very little of assets. A Chapter 7 is the quickest and easiest way for you to file a bankruptcy and to recover. It is something that's going to last only approximately 4 months. You're going to be able to start your life over. You're going to be able to rebuild your credit far more quickly. And after all, it is the cheapest way to go. If you are in a Chapter 13, quite often you will be required to be in that Chapter 13 for 3 or 5 years. If your income is less than the average income, then you may have qualified for a Chapter 7 under the means test, but you're only going to have to be in a Chapter 13 quite often for just that 3-year period. If your income is over the average income, then you're going to be required to be in a Chapter 13 for 5 years. A Chapter 13, the nice thing about it is there are a lot of tools that allow you to manage income tax debts, manage student loan debts, manage a foreclosure and not have to lose a house because you've fallen behind a few payments on the mortgage because of a short-term disability or something happening. Now you are able to catch up those payments by paying a mortgage payment and a little bit more than that in the Chapter 13, which is paid back to the mortgage company to catch that up over a longer period of time. There are a number of reasons to file a Chapter 13. Sometimes it's just to stop the harassment. It may be that you're wanting to take a car and not have to pay what you truly owe for it. If you owe $15,000 on a $5,000 car and it's been over 910 days since you bought that car, you're able to cram down that car and only pay what the car is actually worth. There's no reason to pay $15,000 for a $5,000 car. And you can do something very similar to that in a Chapter 7 by doing a redemption. All of these tools are quite often confusing. There's a lot of information on our website. There's a lot of information in our book. And of course, I'm happy to sit down with you and go through all of this so that we have a plan of action for you. an analysis of the situation where you're in charge instead of your creditors, so that you can take the horse by the reins and you can guide your family to where you need to go. Your greatest responsibility in all of this is to make sure that you and the family is taken care of. It's not your creditors that you owe the greatest duty to, it's yourself and your family. If you want to schedule a free appointment, an analysis of this, and learn what the solutions are, I'm happy to spend up to 2 hours with you so that we can discuss those options, some of which are better than others. This is Nick Thompson. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm an experienced attorney doing bankruptcies and foreclosure defense work. I've been doing that for over 30 years, and I'm happy to do it for you. Thank you.